Mwahahaha! I have defeated Sony Music Entertainment Group in a battle for custody of my 86 videos. They thought they could strike my videos, but I won in the end. So with that means that I can finally upload my episode 20 reaction video to 86 and continue my regularly scheduled programming. With that being said, this episode of 86 was quite phenomenal in my opinion. One of the better episodes of the series, definitely, especially from a character building standpoint, which I greatly appreciated. In particular with Shinei Nozen, I think his character in this episode was quite fantastic, and through his character we were able to experience a lot of growth through other characters like Frederica. That being said, we'll get to it when we get to it in this video, so let's just go ahead and jump right in because, man, I need to talk about some 86. It's been a while. So it seems that Giad has a new plan to fight the Legion, and this is once again another plan where, well, it only works once, and if it doesn't work, you lose the war. There's been quite a few of that so far, especially in the second half of this season against the Legion, which goes to show that they are just an extremely formidable foe if they're always using Plan Z as their initial plan. So basically what this plan is to use an anti-radar weapon of sorts, which is essentially to take planes and burst them over the air with metal shrapnel, and it's all of the metal shrapnel that they have, and this is supposed to basically jam enemy radars so that they can enact the second part of the plan, which is for the UK, the United Kingdom, yes, the good old UK, to go and basically be a diversion for everybody else to go in behind them. And well, this plan is very high risk. Actually, the Legion fell for the diversion, which is really cool. The plan actually works. I like some of the dialogue in this scene because they talk about how the Legion is like super smart and they learn really fast. So fast that even at certain points they were able to think ahead against everybody else pretty much. It goes to show how scary the Legion is, once again in my opinion, and the war that they're fighting is a war that honestly is totally against them in almost every single way possible. I mean, how can you fight a self-learning machine, AI, Legion thing that is literally called Legion that can at any moment outsmart you with relative ease? I mean, that's frightening. This leads to one of my favorite scenes of this episode, maybe my favorite scene of the episode in reality. So Raiden goes to talk to Shinei and he basically says that he wants Shin to take Frederica with him, and this is because that, well, essentially he's the safest. Shin is never going to die. If anybody is going to die, it will be everybody but him. He will 100% of the time be the last person in the squad to survive and fight on. So it makes sense for Raiden to go and say, hey, take Frederica back with you instead of everybody else being tasked to do so, because you're basically impenetrable. So this leads to somewhat of an argument between the two, as Shinei, well, it seems like he's reverted back to his previous personality, which Raiden pretty much calls out, and he reminds him what he's fighting for and tells him not to fight on his own and basically take care of himself. And this is the part that I love about this episode, because it shows that Shinei is missing something with his character. He is fundamentally like there is something within him that isn't there, that was there before. To me, this, in my opinion, is there to set up the romance between Vladilena and Shinei, because it's there. Like, you can clearly see that the person or the thing that Shinei is missing is a person, and that is Vladilena, because they talk about how he's reverted into his previous personality of being the Undertaker, and well, what was he before Vladilena? The Undertaker. What was he after Vladilena? Shinei. It makes a lot of sense for Shinei to, after basically losing Vladilena, to fall and revert back into this previous personality that he was before. It's almost in many ways like a really twisted breakup between a relationship that never was. And I think this is really smart to do, especially for Shinei's character and Vladilena's character, because this gives leeway to, well, reintroducing Vladilena pretty soon. I hope it's at the end of the series. That's what I hope for. That's what I theorize, is that in the last episode or two, which by the way is delayed until March, so hey, after this Saturday, I'll see you guys in 3 months when it comes to 86 videos at least. We'll of course be talking about Attack on Titan next season, the case studies of Vanitas, talking about a couple really cool anime anime next season. But besides that, I think this scene really is here, or this episode in general is really here to set up that Shinei, and by extension, not just him, but the rest of the 86, they need their major. They're, in many ways, their person that will tell it like it is and just be there for them and treat them as normal people. I mean, that is extremely valuable for the 86 in general, to be treated like normal people. And I also think, by extension as well, that as Raiden is calling out Shinei for reverting to that previous personality, I think at the same time, I think the 86 have somewhat progressed past Shinei at this point. Not that they've changed characters completely or anything like that, but they assimilated into society and they chose to go back to finish this fight and this war. Like, I inadvertently quoted Master Chief there. That would be really funny if Shinei's just like, I need a weapon. That'd be really great. But I feel like because of the way Shinei's character has been going so far in this season, he's went back, he's regressed, whereas the 86 have pushed forward. And I think that creates a really interesting dynamic. Even though the 86 aren't, as different people entirely, they're still the same people. They're still obviously, I don't know, they still want to live. And I think that's what Raiden says in this scene, is that they still want to live. And I feel like Shinei doesn't. And to be fair, it makes sense for Shinei's character, like, especially as a person even, to be like this, because he's had to kill a lot of his friends. He's had to be the Reaper, the Undertaker, the Executioner, whatever you want to call it. He's had to be that person for everybody. And that will weigh on some people. That will change people. And that, I think, is why Shinei's character in this scene is beautifully presented and beautifully sets up the return of Vladilena, at least in the context of Shinei's character and the rest of the 86's character. And while this is happening, the rest of the 86 are basically eavesdropping on Shin and Raiden's conversation, argument, whatever you want to call it. And I love this because Kurena is being kept quiet by Anju, and Frederica even calls Kurena a dog. And this scene is really, I think, important, especially for Kurena's character, and especially for us, the audience, to set, once again, in, at least for me, this is of course how I observe the scene. Maybe other people's will observe it differently, but this scene was here to say Kurena is not there to be any sort of like romantic in any way with Shin. That spot is reserved for Vladilena, because not only Frederica called Kurena a dog, but Kurena pretty much in this scene is basically roasted and ousted as this sisterly type, just this person that is there for Shin, much like any of the other 86, but maybe a little bit closer. And I think that even shows because Kurena herself is just like, gets really embarrassed and shy about liking Shin, is like, no, we would never know, all that stuff. And I think that really just shows that I think Kurena is going to be friend zoned. But yeah, well, Kurena's cute. We can't deny that. She's a decently well-written character. She has strong motivations to like Shin, in my opinion, because who wouldn't like Shin? He's this mysterious guy. She's just worried about him. They're partners in the 86, so it makes sense. And I think at the same time, it makes sense for Shin to not like Kurena. So I think this is what this scene was really setting up here, was that, like, don't get your hopes up, but if you're a Kurena Shin shipper, then may God help your soul. And I mean, as well, I want to bring up in this scene before we move on, is that they even mentioned in this scene that they lost all contact with the Republic, and they even bring up Vladilena by name, of course, through one of her titles, which is the Major. So I think it's quite obvious what this episode here was supposed to do, and that is to say, hey, remember our main character Vladilena? She's there somewhere, and they haven't forgot about her. And if they haven't forgot about her, and if the story hasn't forgot about her, then maybe you shouldn't forget about her. I think another point in this episode where they set that up is they have this whole sequence where they're trying to get resources from the Legion, and they go and they basically talk about how they're just running out of resources, pretty much even when it comes to food. Like, they'll in a day be out of food. This, to me, at least my theory, is that, well, what is left of the Republic, led by Vladilena, probably most likely, is that they are going to show up when the 86 need to be bailed out, and they're going to bail the 86 out, and then, hey, we're going to get an interaction between the Republic, pretty much, and Shinei and the rest of the 86. And I cannot wait for that. That is going to be such a hype moment. Like, I think while for the most part it is kind of disappointing, especially for Vladilena fans, that we haven't seen a lot of her this season, I think because of that, it's built up a tension to where we are getting now to a point where we are going to see her pretty soon. And once we do, it is going to be an epic moment. And when it happens, I am maybe going to jump up out of my chair and scream. Maybe. We'll have to report back in March on that if that happens. So, man, March, that's going to be such a long wait. But we'll see. We'll see if we can wait it out, I suppose. I do like the scene, though. It is a really touching scene where they agree to see the sea together, because I agree that they should see me because I am the SeaTactics. So I think it's really unique and kind of cool how, you know, I've touched so many people's hearts around the world as, you know, on the SeaTactics channel, that people have realized me as the name of SeaTactics and they dedicated a whole scene to me. I mean, that is just, you know, I didn't ask for it. I think that's really nice. I think that's really cool that, you know, all the characters want to see me, you know. I'm down with that, you know. I want to hang out with Raiden. Raiden seems like a pretty cool dude. I'll take Anju and Kurena, no comment. Great stuff. You know, this is just a great scene. Just kidding, of course. But I think this scene is really cool because I mean, the first thing I thought of was Attack on Titan, because they all agree to see the sea. I think most people did as well, in regards to what I've seen on Twitter. I think this bleeds a little bit of reality back into what's going on in the world of 86, because these characters talk about how, you know, they never got to see the sea because as soon as they were going to go on a field trip, the war happened and they never got to see it. And, you know, Frederica as well never got to see it because of what happened. I mean, it seems the war really stopped all of these people's lives in track. Once the war happened, it immediately became the war effort 24/7 in their lives. And that is kind of sad that they were never able to experience normal childhood and normal lives because the sea was taken away from them by the Legion. Once again, very reminiscent of Attack on Titan, but I still think this is just really, really, really good writing, especially world building and character writing all in one scene. That's impressive. Then the last scene of this episode, which I think is basically a continuation of the scene with Raiden and Shin, but I think this is so much more sadder than the previous one, but I think it achieves relatively the same thing and develops, in my opinion, both Frederica and Shin really well as a duo together, as like a brother-sister kind of thing, which is really impressive if you think about it. They did this in a scene where I was like, oh my god, by the end, you know, I was like, oh, wow, this is really good. This is really good stuff. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So Shin, you know, goes to talk to Frederica, and Shin, he feel like for the longest time he didn't have anything to live for, which makes sense. I mean, he's a soldier, one of the best soldiers ever, and he's put all of his effort into being this kick-ass soldier. And for the longest time, he felt that like putting his all into this war effort and putting 100% of himself into this was fine because he all along expected to die. But when his brother died, he felt that there was no goal to replace his brother. I think for the longest time, he felt that his brother was just there as, you know, the guy that everybody looked towards. And once that went away, once that example went away, it's, you know, he didn't have a goal. He didn't have anyone to look up to. And I think as well, because he expected to die, he put so much of his effort into fighting the Legion that I think that is what kept him alive for so long. Because if you think about it, if you put all of your focus 100% into something, eventually you're going to be successful at that thing, you know, like in a job or whatever, hobby, dream, whatever it may be. And I think because of that extreme hyper focus, it kept Shin alive. And I think as well, not having a lot of emotion kept him alive too. We can't deny that the reason he's gotten this far is because he didn't feel much of anything. Him being able to suppress his feelings and emotions is likely just what saved him. And I think that's a beautiful part of his writing, in all honesty. I like a line from Frederica though. She said that she was afraid, or well, is still afraid of Kiri dying. Even in Kiria's state, she's still scared that her former knight is going to die and she doesn't know how to live in a world without him alive. life. And I think that transitions over really well to Shin, who says that he doesn't want his people to die anymore. And I feel like this is just between the two, just this very tender moment where they can finally say what's on their mind together, that they can be okay with just letting it all out, letting it go. I think for Frederica and Shin, it was much needed, especially Shin, because Shin probably kept this in for so long, just so very long, that he didn't even probably know he had these feelings for so long. And I think it's because of people like Frederica and Vladilena, the rest of the 86. I think it's because these people that have kept with him for so long and pretty much have refused to die in his life, that he's forced to face these realities that he's never faced before. Now that he's faced these realities, I think he's realizing he doesn't want this life anymore. He doesn't want to not feel anymore. He's changed enough to where he has accepted others and wants to have his friends prosper and live. Of course, he didn't want them to die before, but what I'm trying to say here is that he's letting those feelings of that in, and he's, because of that, growing as a person, and in a sense regressing because he's realized that. In reality, and what's really cool about this episode is that in the first half of this episode, you thought he was regressing. In the second half of this episode, it shows that through his regression, that is him realizing that he has grown as a person, and especially as a character. This is Shinei's big character development. This is his arc. We are at the climax of his character arc for season 1 right now. And this shows that he has grown. And, applaud A1 Pictures for this, and Sato Asato for writing this series, because she did really well with Shinei's character. And I think a lot of people sleep on Shinei's character just because, well, he's not Vladilena, which I think is kind of a shame, because his character is simply one of the best written characters maybe in the last decade. And I can say that pretty confidently and pretty easily, because it is really good, subtle character building and storytelling. While we wait for next week's episode of 86 before the big 3-month wait, please watch my Vladilena Milize video, which I'm very proud to say, because it's finally back up on YouTube with all of the rest of my 86 videos. So I'll leave a link to that and a playlist to my 86 videos. Click on them, watch them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.